really fundamental rule of reality. The idea that maybe nothing can exist without some kind of a boundary. Now, I know that sounds super abstract, but stick with me here. Once you see it, you'll start noticing it absolutely everywhere, from the street you live on to the very laws of the universe. Okay, so let's just dive right in with a question that sounds incredibly simple, but it's actually really deep. What makes a thing a thing? Seriously, how do you know when you're looking at one thing and not just, a part of something else? Well, the answer we're going to explore is actually surprisingly simple. The core theory is this. A something, and I mean anything at all, only really exists when it has boundaries, a limit, an edge. Without a clear definition of where it begins and where it ends, it's not really a distinct thing. All right, so to really get a grip on this idea, let's start with the physical world, stuff we can all see and touch. We're going to kick things off by looking at how we define the places all around us. Think about it. Something as simple as a street. What makes Main Street Main Street? Well, it's defined by where it starts and where it ends, right? Without those 2 points, it isn't a specific street, it's just pavement. That simple act of defining a start and an end, a boundary, is what creates the something we call a street. Okay, now let's take that exact same idea and just zoom out a bit. A city, yeah, it's a collection of streets and buildings, but what makes it this specific city? It's the city limits. Those legal and geographical boundaries are what give it an identity, turning all that undefined urban sprawl into a specific, defined place. And if we zoom out one last time, guess what? It's the exact same logic for a country. What is a country if it doesn't have borders? It's just land. The border is the boundary that creates the nation as a real, distinct entity. See? Street, city, country. It's the same principle, just at a different scale. So you see the pattern here, right? It doesn't matter if we're talking about a tiny street, a big city, or a whole country. The pattern is identical. If there's no boundary, there's no definable something. The definition is the boundary. Okay, so that makes sense for physical places. But here's where it gets really interesting. This exact same rule applies to a world that isn't physical at all, the purely abstract world of mathematics. In math, they call these boundaries domains. So for example, a line segment isn't some infinite line going on forever. No, it's defined between 2 points. Those are its boundaries. Or think about a function, like taking the square root. It doesn't work for every number, right? It has a rule, a domain, where it's valid. Without these defined limits, these mathematical ideas would just be, well, meaningless. And the takeaway here is pretty powerful. Even in this world of pure logic, of mathematics, nothing can exist without a domain. These rules, these limits, they're what create mathematical reality in the first place. And this is where you can really see this amazing parallel. What the world of math calls a domain, a set of rules for its numbers, the world of physics calls a range or scale, a set of conditions where its laws apply. The name is different, but the core logic, it's exactly the same. All right, let's take this idea and push it even further. We're going to take this rule from maps and numbers and apply it to the very fabric of the universe itself, from the tiniest atoms to the most massive galaxies. So when you look at physics, you're dealing with these just wildly different scales. The laws that tell a subatomic particle what to do, that's quantum mechanics, are completely different from the laws that steer giant galaxies, which is general relativity. The boundary here isn't some line you can draw. The boundary is the scale. The rules of reality literally change depending on how big or how small you are. So, from the quantum to the cosmic, the fundamental laws of our universe aren't one size fits all. They only work inside a specific, bounded range. In physics, scale itself is the boundary, and that boundary defines which set of rules you have to play by. Okay, so we've gone from city streets to math problems to the very edges of the universe. Let's bring this all home for one final powerful insight. What this all means is that it doesn't matter if you're talking about mathematical sets or geographical places or the laws of physics. One single fundamental rule holds true across all of them. These fields that seem so separate all meet on this one core idea. Something can only exist because it is bounded. And this idea, it's not some brand new radical concept. This thought, that definition and measure are essential to creation, has been explored in philosophy and scripture for thousands of years. This quote from the Quran puts it so beautifully. All that we created is precisely measured. This idea of defined limits is ancient. So at the end of the day, what's the big idea here? It's that boundaries aren't just lines on a map or rules in an equation. They might just be the essential ingredient of reality itself, the very force that turns an undefined nothing into a defined something. And that, well, that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question. If boundaries create everything we know, what, if anything, exists without them?